I think that is a huge category under being courageous is delegating, because they're not you, right? The folks that work for you or peers, let's just say that they work for you. They are they're learning. They're learning from you. You know, you're in your position because of who you are and what you do. But it does not mean that what they're doing is wrong. It just might be different. And at the end of the day, each little piece each time you trust someone, and each little piece that they put together builds this massive puzzle, right? That in the end is going to look beautiful anyways.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Emotional Intelli-Gents Podcast, a podcast where we explore the intersection of emotional intelligence and leadership. And whether you're a seasoned executive or just starting out in your leadership journey, we're going to share practical tips, inspiring stories, and expert insights to help you develop your emotional intelligence and achieve your goals. So sit back, relax, and get ready to take your leadership skills to the next level. I'm Ismail.
And I'm Sameer. So Ismail, there is a large list of characteristics that make up a great leader. We talk about strategic thinking. We talk about strong communication skills, ability to empathize and show compassion, problem solving. I mean, the list goes on and on. But I really think that one characteristic that is underrated, but also ties back to every other characteristic that a good leader has, is the ability to lead courageously, or to have courage, to act with courage,
Sure.
to lead with courage. And I think that being courageous or leading with courage, what it truly means is being able to push through those uncomfortable situations, right? Like being comfortable with being uncomfortable and making difficult decisions, sticking to your gun and moving forward on a path when that path may not be clear or even easy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot embedded. It's a heavy topic, right? And frankly, I think it's fair to say that a prerequisite to being a good, strong leader is to have courage, especially in those difficult situations. And every day there are going to be times that are tough and difficult, and there's going to be times that are going to be smooth, and it just really depends on the day to see what person shows up.
Yeah, and undoubtedly, those moments of courage are really the difference makers. And that's when I've noticed in my career that when I've been courageous and taken that leap is when I saw the growth, right? So that's what today's episode's about. It's about courage. And what we're going to talk about in today's episode, Ismail and I, is what does it mean to us to be courageous as a leader and to lead with courage? So let's get started.
So I'll lead. What does leading courage mean? Leading with courage mean to me? So the first thing that comes to mind when I think of courage is fear, right? And so for me, it's not necessarily about the confidence that you have and pushing through. I think it is about feeling fear or running into a situation that you're afraid of, but still choosing to act. So it's not about being fearless. It's about being transparent and vulnerable in those moments and just still moving forward.
And I think, what you hit on there is really critical. It's having that steadfast vision, but then also sticking to it when the times get tough. And I think that's when courage is most required. It's when, obviously we want to be nimble. We need to be able to make a decision, go down a course, but then have the courage to pivot, right, and shift. And finding that critical moment of what that inflection point is of when we shift, that's the hardest part of being a leader, right? It's when you're going down the path of a decision and deciding whether it's time to change course or renege on the plan, right? That is, to me, one of the hardest parts about being a leader. But when you're committing to the plan, you have to fully commit and show. And I think that when you fully commit to the plan, you bring your team with you along that path, they need to see that you're sticking to the plan yourself, and having that commitment from day one all the way through execution is really, really critical, I think, when we're trying to lead our teams into, a difficult situation.
So you touched on something really interesting, and that is about being able to pivot. You touched about pivoting. I see that when I think of being transparent and vulnerable, pivoting, let's just say admitting that you're wrong, saying, "Hey, I made a mistake. What do we got to do to change it?" And just being able to, okay, yep, let's take a right turn over here. And that is not easy. I think it is a skill that should be practiced more often. And when you first take that leap in doing that, I think it's really freeing.
Yeah, yeah. But, before you can even take that leap, you have to acknowledge the significance of courage. And for me in my career, I don't think I connected the dots until a very definitive moment. I was a young manager. I was working for a company where they did like kind of one of those like skills assessments. Like, I don't know
Yeah,
if you ever
yeah.
heard of like those Hogan assessments,
Sure,
where like
sure.
those 360, where those 360 surveys where people above you, on the
Your
in the org
peers, and
chart below
yeah.
you, your peers are all, yep. So I was taking part in one of those assessments of myself, and one of the categories was leads with courage. And that came up as an area of needed improvement for me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And this was early on. I was probably 1 year into like my first management role. And I remember everything in that survey coming back super positive, but the leading with courage one was not. And I got to be honest, I didn't even know what that meant. Like I didn't understand what that term truly meant at that time. Now looking back, like I I can't stress enough how important courage has been throughout my leadership journey. But at that junction in time, I didn't understand how courage played a part in it, but I was still utilizing that skill. Like, I was stretching myself. I was doing things that were against the grain, trying to think of new strategic ways to approach situations. But I think the one thing that I struggled with early in my career, and this is something that you and I have talked about offline, is one of the things that I really struggled with was people pleasing. And when I think like when you're trying too hard to make everybody happy, and you're kind of pandering in your approach and trying to saying like one thing to keep one group happy, another thing to keep another group happy, not delivering bad news, well, it shows like that your vision is rattled. It shows that you're not staying on a course, and that really erodes trust with your team. So I think that for me, I wasn't leading with courage. I wasn't able to be in a difficult situation and continue down a path, knowing that it was the correct path, because I was too conscious of the resistance. And so, you have to be empathetic to the resistance, but you also have to be able to overcome it. And that's what I was really struggling with.
What's interesting, what I really love about that is that it was something that was identified, we'll say almost academically, right? But uh, you did. My question to you actually is: did you practically take steps to work on that, or did it just grow? You were aware of it and it grew.
I think that for me, it was a proactive approach because I I saw it as a deficiency that came up, and I was like, well, I need to address it. That's kind of how I'm wired, right? Like I'm when I'm open to that type of feedback, and I was able to sort of be self-aware in that moment and recognize situations where I wasn't being courageous. And I think that it had to be a conscious decision for me. And so, I did take practical steps. And part of that was getting feedback from the folks that felt that way and understanding what exactly made them think that. I think that one of the feedbacks that I got at that time was that I was uh, kind of when there was some an area that was new to me or something that didn't understand that well, I showed trepidation or hesitance. And so, that's something that I've really worked on. And now I laugh at that because my entire like career since has been jumping into things and just faking it till I make it, right? And um but that was the criticism that I got, and I really took that to heart, and I worked on that. And so, for me, like there's a framework that I've, and this is something that was taught to me by a mentor. There was a framework regarding courage that I continue to prescribe to, which is, 3 elements. It's try courage, trust courage, and tell courage. And so when we talk about try courage, that is the courage to try something new, taking that first step, right? So that is, a lot of people stop right there. Like, there are people who I know that in their heart and in their mind, they want so badly to be a leader. They want to grow in their leadership journey. They want to have more responsibility. They want the title. They want the money, right? And so they think they have all the skills on the periphery. They're good communicators. They're critical thinkers. They're solution oriented. They're people, right? Like, they are empathizers. They're emotionally intelligent, right? But the one thing that they lack is courage, which is really at the nucleus of all of those things. And and I've had some hard conversations with people where I had to say, look, man, you have it all. Look, lady, you have it all. But you need to get over the self-doubt. You need to take that first step. You need to have try courage, right? You need to have the courage to try. You need to put yourself out there. The other thing is trust courage, right? So that's, as a leader, having the courage to trust others, right? And so allowing them to do things and make decisions and run with things, and just trusting the team around you. And then the last one is tell courage. And what tell courage really is the ability to have the courage to give that negative feedback, give that difficult feedback. We've done an episode on feedback skills here on the podcast. Such a crucial skill. So that tell courage is very important as well. And then I think, on the flip side too, being able to receive that courage, that feedback.
Yeah, that's great. That is courageous. I mean, when you talk about try courage, for me in my career, the key moments that I can think about where I had to practice courage or courage was required generally were actually outside my career. So they were periphery, and they were actually around. So an example would be in university for me in college in Canada. We had these internship programs, and my first internship happened to be outside of my hometown, Calgary, and I'd never lived anywhere else. And so the idea of moving somewhere was completely foreign to me. And at the time, it was the scariest thing I've ever done, like anxiety provoking. Thankfully, I had met someone who was in the same program. We knew each other tangentially, but he was also going. We were going to Fort McMurray, so northern Canada. I didn't know anything about it, right?
Yeah,
but
it just sounds remote.
It does.
Fort McMurray.
Fort McMurray, my friend. And for those of you who don't know where it is, look it up. You'll see. But since then, I've lived in multiple cities around the world. Every time has been scary, but a little less than the time before. So, I mean, obviously, I grew up in Calgary. I moved to Fort McMurray. I did Ottawa. I moved to London and New York, and now I reside in Chicago. And each of those were just progressively easier. And I feel like it was, even though it was a scary moment, a scary decision to make, I actually trusted that, okay, you know what? I've done this before, and it's going to turn out just fine.
Yeah.
I mean, those were some of the biggest moments. And those moments, though, how they translated into my career is something as simple as, look, if I can handle that, which was probably the scariest thing I've ever done, I can go over and talk to person X and give them feedback, for instance. I'm giving that example.
Yeah.
Or I can take, we'll say, a leap of faith on a project that you are significantly fearful of, or a topic that you don't know the best. I mean, the other thing for me that I learned, I think I learned this through mentors and by watching them work also, was delegating. You had just talked about this, right? So that was the
trusting in others.
trust. Yes. I think that is a huge category under being courageous is delegating, because they're not you, right?
Yeah.
The folks that work for you or peers, let's just say that they work for you. They're learning. They're learning from you. You know, you're in your position because of who you are and what you do, but it does not mean that what they're doing is wrong. It just might be different. And at the end of the day, each little piece each time you trust someone, and each little piece that they put together builds this massive puzzle, right? That in the end is going to look beautiful anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's such a nice way to put it, and reflecting on my own leadership journey, right? Like, I just think about how now I look back at all of those situations, similar to how you look back at all those moves that you had in your life, and how each one got easier. And now I think about how much courage that I feel I have, like, burning inside of me to take risks and take chances. And I wish that, like, I could go back to that young manager and implant this level of courage in that person. But what I would tell people who are really have a strong desire to lead, a lot of times you focus on all of those traditional leadership categories and those technical skills, all crucial, all super important. But if you don't have the courage to take that first step and put yourself out there, and sometimes, that is asking for something, right? Like, there are so many folks that I know that, they have a passion to grow in their career, but they don't do anything to help themselves. And so I tell myself all the time, I've never received something that I haven't asked for. So every single time that I've made a leap in my career, it's been either me asking for something and the person saying yes, or me asking the person for something, them saying no, and then me taking matters into my own hands.
Right. Yeah.
But it always started with that ask.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. We hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you want to stay updated on all the latest content and behind the scenes action, be sure to follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and several other places by using the link in the show notes. And if it's not too much trouble, we'd love for you to leave a review and share this episode with some of your friends. Your support means everything to us, and we can't wait to connect with you online. Now, let's get back to the show.
So, Ismail, we've covered the significance of courage and how important it is in building a strong career and being a strong leader. The question that I'd ask you, from your experience and what you've seen leading teams throughout your career, can courage be learned, or is it just something inherently that you have? Because I've asked myself this question quite a bit.
Okay. I'm going to be curious about what your answer is after mine, of course, right? But I believe fundamentally that every single person is born with courage. It is inherent in all of us. And the real question then becomes, are you prepared to use that courage or not? I don't think you really need to learn how to be courageous. You really have to practice that particular skill that I believe is inherent in you. Because really, it, to me, based on what courage means to me, right? I'm saying it's, you are facing fear. You're in the face of fear, and you still choose to take action. And I think everyone has that option and ability. It's just whether you want to use it or not.
Yeah, and it's kind of on a sliding scale. Courage is relative based on everybody's individual goals, desires, right? If somebody struggles with, let's say, mental health, and to them they struggle to hold down a steady job. For them, it takes courage just to wake up in the morning, open their laptop, and start working. So, I know that sometimes I look at courage through my own personal lens, and I have to remind myself that, not everybody is me who, has this like hyper ambition to grow in their career and to constantly be moving up and moving up and moving up. And so, like, for me, courage has played a huge role But I think courage plays a huge role for everyone, right? In their whatever individual capacity that they have. I think I agree with you to a degree that, everybody has courage. It's kind of how they choose to use it. There's also so many environmental factors and things, and like how people, like, from what I've seen, it's rarely an issue with intellect. It's rarely an issue with skill. It's truly just an issue of confidence. And so
I sorry to interrupt. I wanted to touch on this. I was waiting for it to happen together, and I
mhm,
think it's using the combination of confidence and courage, and
mm,
I think they're two very different things. They're on different paths, because confidence is essentially you having the experience and understanding can anticipate the outcome and do it again, do an activity again. Whereas
mhm.
courage is not knowing the outcome and still taking a step forward, right?
Interesting.
Confidence to me is built via courage.
No, that's really interesting, and kind of relates back to what we talked about, right? Like the past experiences allowing you to build confidence one on top of the other, and then that relating to courage and how it helps you be courageous in those crucial moments. So that's a really interesting thought.
I'm curious your thoughts on ways that people can actually build their courage or work on their courage. Considering, I think that's a great next question, from whether it's inherent or learned skill, but how can people actually build it?
I think that for me, it's been like every step of my life, I always think of it as like a leap of faith, right? So you have to be okay with not to going into a situation that could turn out to be colossally terrible, right? And until you're open to that, it's hard to get courage to make those big moves. But I will say that, I I take leaps of faith all the time in my personal life and in my career, and they work out for me, right? So and sometimes, I have my regrets, and sometimes I think back and I'm like, I probably should have done that differently, or maybe tweak that there, or I should have done this, done that. But it's all in the mindset of progress, right? And like, so if my goal is to grow, I need to tie courage to that and make sure that those things are always hanging out together. um so I think from that standpoint, for me, like how I built courage is understanding that my goals in my life require courage. It's really that simple. I don't have like a great formula, a 5-step guide for you, but from my personal experience, to build courage, you got to understand that everything you want in your career and possibly even in your life is going to require it. It's going to require you to be courageous.
And you know this about me. I like to talk in metaphors, right?
Yes.
I like to give an example that is fake or real. Could be, and my way of building courage, the way that I would respond to that, is it's easy, because find something that you're afraid of doing and do it.
Yeah.
You can take baby steps, right? So, one of them would be like, sing that song that you love so much out loud in the public or in front of your family, or wear that crazy shirt that is going to make you look crazy, but you love it anyways, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
One
I
thing,
got a couple of those.
yeah, I bet we all do,
Oh yeah, for
right?
sure. It's
And
got pineapples on it, but
yes.
yeah.
um, like there, and then there's some other ones that I think are a little bit meatier, and that's like talking to a friend or a family member about a business idea that you have. Because generally, I feel like people want to come to a safe place, go to a safe place. And if you're coming to them with an idea, there might be fear of them laughing at you or thinking you're crazy for doing it. But
Yeah.
every single thing that I think, you had alluded to it, every good thing that probably happened to you in your career, it's you being courageous and like taking that
Hmm.
step forward. And
Yes.
this is one of those examples, right? This is one of those ways, like taking stuff. Even we were talking about this earlier, delegating work to another person, that's something that many of the listeners out there could do today. Try it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And see how it goes. It probably won't be the outcome that you'd expect, but it gives you an opportunity to kind of exercise that muscle.
Yeah, and you brought up a great point. Like, you got to kind of speak things into the world. Like you talked about bringing up a business plan to your family members or to your friends. I would give the same advice at work. Like, if you have this burning desire to grow and lead, but you don't tell anybody, like you're just kind of holding on to that passion in your mind and in your heart, it's not going to happen for you. Like, you have to speak it out into the world. And it is the responsibility of the leaders around you to kind of extract that from you and be open to having those conversations. I will absolutely say that. So if you don't feel like you're in an environment where you can even say that to your leaders, then maybe that's not the right place for you to grow.
I love that you said that. I love the way, yes, 100%.
But speaking it out into the world and letting people know what your desires are, it's a small act of courage, but it's well, I don't want to say it's a small act of courage. It's the first act of courage.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, thinking of a metaphor, the way I saw it was like poking a needle into a balloon, got this big, volume of water, and it's coming out, and that hole is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just going to all of a sudden explode. And I feel like that's that first step.
Right. It's that poking that needle in the balloon. Exactly.
I do love that. There's different ways that people can express their courage. I think for me, and this would probably be my like parting thought, right, for today, would be, you can't really care what other people think. It sounds it might sound a little
idealistic.
Yeah, it might sound, yes. It might sound idealistic. It's easier. It's certainly easier said than done. But I think in the example of, say, talking to a friend or a family member about a business idea, like starting, I don't know, 90 nail salons. People might think, why would I start nail salons? Although apparently it's a good business, but you have to not care what they think. You just have to talk through. You have to say it. Some people are gonna like it. Some people are gonna, really cheer you on. Some people aren't, and you just gotta ignore the haters. And that's a whole different topic, I think, that I'm kind of going down.
I know, seriously, like you just definitely like opened up a whole different set of trauma for everybody listening. Yeah. But no, I think that's an awesome point, and one that is a requirement for courage, is being able to accept whatever the universe throws back at you, and that's the hardest part. And honestly, that's probably the number one reason why people don't go after what they want. It's I can't even deny that this podcast would fall into this category for me, at least. And you had to kind of tug my arm a little bit and say, hey, look, man, you can do it. And this is something that required a lot of courage for me, and it's a lot to do with my fear of judgment from others, and I had to overcome that, and I'm glad I did, because now we're on episode number 10. I'm having a fantastic time hanging out with you every other week, and it's been a ton of fun. And honestly, like you said, like, you got to let people say what they want to say. You just got to let it roll off your back. Right. So,
and I do just want to mirror that, in the sense that you've been a great supporter, and you've helped me take the leap to do this podcast as well. It's something that I wanted to do for a very long time, and I certainly give you kudos for helping me take that leap.
This has been a ton of fun talking about this topic. I know it's one that both of us are extremely passionate about, and it's been a different format of today's episode. I think we really wanted to get raw with it and just really talk about our personal experiences, talk about our personal feelings about these topics. And this was the first one that came to mind for both of us, because it's been something that's been so instrumental in both of our careers. So thank you for listening, everyone. We really enjoyed chatting about this topic. And if you guys have any additional thoughts on this, obviously check out our show notes, and we'll have plenty of additional information and resources on courage. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Emotional Intelli-Gents Podcast. We hope you found it informative and enjoyable. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more people. If you're interested in learning more about the topics we discussed today, be sure to check out the show notes for links and resources. You can find them by visiting our website. And if you have any questions or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us by email at info@emotionalintelligence.com or connect with us on social media by using the links in the show notes.